Welcome to my talk. This is best audio tools for the job and why you might not be getting them. I'm going to be your host today. I'm Eric Lorenz. Hello, Chris. But before I go deeper into this talk, so a little bit background of myself. I'm Eric Lorenz. I graduated from Savannah College of Art and Design in 2014. Majored in sound design and did a minor in music composition. Currently working at Wabi Sabi Sound as a sound designer. And I've worked on multiple titles, including The Witness, which I did a lot of editing, implementation, and QA work for. Destiny 2, I did some creature designs for that. CCP Atlanta's VR title Sparc, which is a fun little game. Anyone with a VR headset should check it out. Did some cinematics for Horizon Zero Dawn, a bunch of explosions. And working on a new upcoming title from Outpost Games called S.O.S, which I'm going to put a little shameless team self-advertising here and say that last weekend we did a closed alpha where we just had a bunch of players play it and we ended up ranking number 3 on total Twitch viewers. So watch out for that coming out. That's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to come out in January. So what do I want to get out of this talk? My title might be a little soul-crushing, but don't worry. It's very positive, actually. And this talk is kind of mainly for people who are kind of getting into game audio, maybe worked on a couple casual projects, and they're just learning the systems here and there and just getting their feet wet for all the things. But senior sound designers, that means you should not leave this room. I think you're going to enjoy some of the anecdotes that I'm going to have, and because everyone goes through a lot of the same things, and we'll be able to connect and hang out and talk afterwards about it. So yeah, during QA, I would love to hear if anyone else had some similar anecdotes on systems that they were developing and pitfalls and fun little things that go wrong in production. So I only had enough time to go over the basics, overview and personal anecdotes. If I had free range, I could probably make this talk go for 2 hours probably. And so I'm giving this talk because this question rose out of an interview that I did with Andrew Greenberg, and I was showcasing some work on The Witness, and specifically ambience mixing. And I was talking about the way we were using these volumes. They were customized volumes, and I had the whole thing where you had a waterfall as a point source, and we were going through this corridor, and you ended up at in this kind of town area. And I was showing the intricate ways that our ambient system was either emitting certain sounds, ducking other ones, and we had boxes upon boxes, and it was really complex, and it took me forever to do this one little strip. And so I was showcasing it, and during QA we had a question, someone who was I'm gonna paraphrase this, but they were basically oh well, why didn't you just use audio ray trace triggers to find what occlusion material it was hitting, and then apply a filter to that. And I was just I would love that. I really would. I wish we had that. Everyone always wants to have the best tools for everything, but not every single game is really gonna get that. And I was reaching out to some other game audio people, and they were oh yeah, no, that happens all the time. We'll be going for something, and then next thing you know, the team's just no, you're not gonna get it. But before we start off with any sad anecdotes of when you didn't get the things that you didn't want, let's start with the wonderful tools of game audio. Here's a bunch of excited business people because we're excited about this part. Yeah, so some of the best known tools for game audio, they're going to be middleware. There's many different kinds of programs out there. They're all great. Some are used for both sound design and music. Other are just music alone. Some of these programs are free. Some of them can get a little pricey, but they're all really good. And it just kind of comes down to a preference that you have. For instance, I enjoy Fmod's music system a little bit more than maybe Wise, but if you just wanted me to design a bunch of really intricate sounds, I'm going to be oh yeah, Wise all the way. I love debugging in there and getting real deep into Wise. But yeah, I've only really used Fmod, Wise. I touched Fabric once, and never used Elias or Cryware or any sort of those other ones. So also in just the most general sense, and this can be applied to any external tool that's going to be talking to a game engine, what middleware is basically just a computer software that provides services to software applications beyond what they can normally do, and it's kind of just gonna like make it easier for like people to be like, oh, so here's your tools, and then here's all the things that you can do, and it's going to directly communicate with our game, and then kind of keep it like separated and balanced, and it's nice and easy. So how many people have used middleware? And just even if it's just like experience, just like playing around with it? Cool, so we're all like pretty familiar with it. And how many have shipped a game using middleware? It's a lot less. I see you guys. Cool. So I'm just gonna go real quick some of the things that middleware can utilize. For anyone who hasn't really messed around with it, you can do a lot of things like sound blending and like dynamic volumes, randomized pitches, and you can randomize anything, and it's great. You just randomize it all. You can get so granular with all these things. You've got like interactive music systems, and like I know for a fact that like Wise has like alternative-based settings on what platform you're going for, which is extremely important for mixing, because sometimes just inherently a mix on a PC, like putting all that sounds with like the CPU, it's going to be like louder than like say the PS4 one, so you kind of have to like bump things up and down here and there. You also got like parameter control. You can do sample modulation on it, reverb sends, and just everything. Like it's all just clean, and it's ready to be like implemented, and it's a fun just little system just on its own. And then there's also some more advanced integrated tools. I kind of wanted to just put this one in because it's a little more niche, but I love it. So you have things like Pure Data, which, like, if anyone's familiar with Pure Data, it's a visual scripting program similar to like Max MSP. It's absolutely fun. I love it. Make systems. You can make like generative melody creators and whatnot. And then the next one over is Enzian Audio. It has to do with Pure Data. It's actually some friends that I've met over in like the UK. They are making, they're developing like a framework where you could take Pure Data patches, convert it into C or C++, and you can implement them into Unity, Fabric, Wise, JavaScript. They're adding more and more, and one day I'll probably use that to ship a title. And another one, Lua, is something that I've been trying to like get into, and it's not a visual scripting language. It's like an actual like line code language, and it's popular among sound designers. It's efficient, it's lightweight, it's small in memory size, and the best thing about all of these is they're all free. So even if you want to like just mess around with it, you just get it and play with it, see what you can do with it, and then impress some people down the line. Also, so if you're lucky enough, you can be a part of a team that uses state-of-the-art custom audio tools. So for instance, this one is kind of an image of Microsoft research team and the coalition. They developed an environmental wave acoustic simulator, and what it does is it measures like diffraction and occlusion and reverberation based off of the level's 3D geometry. And it can map like transitional properties of that sound too. So if you can see, yeah, the Project Triton. So what you can see right now is it working, and you have two listeners. You have A and B. One's in like a smaller corridor, one's outside, and then an instance of a sound emits, and then it bounces off of the 3D geometry in the game, and then it starts to measure out like how many times did it bounce off, how many like what's it bouncing off, how is it going to fill up this one space and then bleed into another one. And then, like as you can see on A, there's like it still has some of the bluer properties, which are going to be like more like initial energies, and then like over on the B, it's just kind of getting some of the spill out, and it's a really cool system. And like if you have a time to like check it out on like GDC Vault, it's one of the coolest systems I have ever seen. And that is, oh my god, this is like fucking up so much. I am so sorry. You know what? I am just gonna duplicate this. And kind of just go off of it. All right, cool. So time to get to like the actual part of my talk, where things might go wrong. So, AKA when your ideas might not fly with the team. So one of the first things I've seen some teams kind of like not really enjoy is complexity of licensing, maybe even pricing. So Wise can get kind of pricey even if you're just using like a limited license. If you want like some of the full features, your bill might run up to like 700, 2,000, like 20,000. And from like a dev standpoint, they might only be thinking of like what your rates are. And they might be like, okay, so we're bringing on this sound designer, and like these are his rates, blah blah blah. It's all of this, and they're like, cool. It's like solidified in their head. But then like you come out and you're just like, oh, so I need this one like tool. And then they just look at it as like, oh, your price just bumped up by like $20,000. Some people might not like that. Like the team might think they're fine with like what they already have. Like if they're already kind of in like a streamlined process and they're using like just like placeholder sounds here and there, they might look at like, oh, why do we need this like middleware? This is gonna like add in some technical work. We're gonna have to like redo some of our code. And they might not like the idea of that. And even though in the long run, it really might help them. And so another little fact that I found out was that programmers don't like black boxes. And by that I mean like a device that can't be opened or looked into, because the middleware devs are the ones who are actually able to access like the inside code of like say Wise. And this might create a problem for them because they'll have to like set up tickets and be like, hey, Audio Kinetic, we're trying to fix this one bug. We think it's within Wise, and like they have to wait for them to get back to them. And a lot of programmers they want to get in and be like and understand whatever system that everyone's working on, so that way they can fix it as soon as they could. Also because we all break tools, no matter how big or small a tool is. It kind of eventually just happens because, as artists, we always just like, oh, let's do this one thing. Okay, cool, yeah, let's do some other things. Add more things on top of it, and then next thing you know, you completely broke it. And like, if it's solely a middleware issue, when that comes up, finding the bug's going to be much harder. And also, if the middleware doesn't have like a really good debugging software, that'll also cause some problems. So everyone does want the best for their game, whether that is audio or design or like art. No one's just like no producer is going to outright say like, no, I think this game I think it needs bad audio, and like I'm not even talking about like 8-bit or 16-bit. Like you can have stylized audio that like sounds great. But I'm talking just like bad deliveries, just things that like you don't really care about, because everyone, they care. They really do care for it. So they'll want the best, like what they can, but whatever is within their reach. You don't know if there's certain setbacks that they had to go through, whether like they lost funding or if there was like huge pitfalls in the production, maybe the audio director left, and you just don't know sometimes what might happen on a project. And so like these setbacks, they might like skew your idea of a finished product. So like if a game comes out with like what you're like, oh, that one sound was kind of weird, it's kind of shitty, like you can't blame the team for that, like unless you know exactly like if they were like, no, like I want this crappy sound to go, and like maybe their system completely fell apart 2 weeks before shipping, and they had to scramble everything together and ship something that like they knew, they knew well down inside that they were pushing out into the world. So yeah, you just kind of have to like know what they go through, and just know that everyone, they really do want the best all the time for anything that they can get. And so even if they want the best, your ideas of the best might not be the right time, because the closer that a team is finalizing their features, the lower your chances are of obtaining any new system. If they're in a streamlined process and they're like, cool, like we have all our features, everything's in, and like you'll come in as the sound designer and you're like walking into the studio and you're like, all right guys, we need Wise. And they're gonna be like, no, we're using Unreal. And you're like, no, man, we need Wise because Wise is the best. And there's gonna be some issues with that. Needless to say, like just like kind of personal stuff. And closer they are, they're gonna, not want anything new. Any sort of tools, and like this even goes beyond middleware, any sort of tools that you might want to be putting into the game, all of that still takes time to develop. It has to develop naturally, and yes?
I was going to add to that too.
Oh, go ahead.
Audio also comes along pretty late in the process anyway, because of the scope. Like, people don't know what the scope, like what weapons or levels are going to be in until the end of the game. So this situation happens a lot.
Yeah.
That's the nature of how audio.
Yeah, no, I've heard so many people who whenever they get in on a game, even a lot of audio people, they'll get in towards the end, and not even oh yeah, no, I'm coming in towards the end. It's no, yeah, this is when we're gonna work on it, is at the end. And I'm just well, cool, that's fine, that's all right. If they don't have a large budget and you're gonna be handing them assets and doing all that stuff, that's totally fine. But if you really want to get down and get really nitty gritty and work with the engineers and work with all those people, then you gotta come in the right time. So basically, what I'm trying to say is, you got to put yourself in the shoes of the developers. It's great to be an audio person, and it's great to be extremely enthusiastic, but maybe some of the devs don't share that same intense motivation for sound, and you kind of have to take a deep breath, take a step back, and be okay, so what are your what is their specific goals, and how can I help that for them? So, what you can do to help your cause. Part 1, this is going to be on advocating and timing. So, I already talked a little bit about timing. The farther you are in production, the harder it's going to be. So this is especially going to apply for any sort of systems, because you're going to have to make a case for them for gameplay. So whether it's middleware, in-engine audio systems, or even just taking a system that you have and adding on to it, it's, the developers are going to be how is it going to help gameplay? Because you can be over here shouting oh, but check out this immersion thing, or check out this believability, or we're going to have this crazy cool parameter that when it flips on just modulates all the sounds, and they're going to be well, we're shipping in a year. How is it what's that going to do for the player? Because you also are you're gonna have to put yourself in the perspective of a player, and make a case for playability and feedback. All of these things, as much as you really want fun audio things, and we all really do, the main thing is you have to think about the player. So if you have all these cool ambient system things and things flying overhead, and none of that actually pertains to gameplay, it's going to distract them. And so you have to figure out all the little things that oh, is this going to be distracting for the player? Am I using this just for my own personal gain? Which I have done multiple times, where you'd be no, we got this cool thing, and I'll put it in, and we'll get QA response and be what was that sound? And I was oh, it was the cool thing that all right, okay, I get it, case in point, all right. Cool, so to get all these things, you should get in on the conversation at an early stage of development. So if you want your awesome vision to succeed, you're going to have to get into conversations with whenever they're experimenting with things, when they're testing out new ideas for the game, as early as possible, because that's when ambitions are high. Everyone's kind of just bouncing ideas off of each other, and no one's taking it too seriously, because the deadlines are kind of soft deadlines. We're at the early stage of a development. We'll give you some time to maybe have a full pass on monster sounds that are only based off of farts. Sure, why not? Let's see where that goes. And if it works, it works. If it's not, okay, let's go back to the drawing board. We didn't really lose that much time. And so this exact thing actually happened in The Witness back in 2009.